Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. Here's what's making news right now.
I believe that it's a great move for Windsor. We are obviously in a time right now where we're in need of something to help. The overdose rates are skyrocketing.
I think it's still a little too early to go back on the 31st. I think there's still a lot of people that, as you can see in the petition, there's a lot of people that are voicing their concerns on coming back.
Somebody came to the door and let me know that they had recently had a COVID outbreak and their protocol had changed such that they were not allowing owners in. And I just sat down on the sidewalk and started crying.
Thanks for joining us. Some local advocates are celebrating today. After hours of discussion, Windsor City Council approved a location for a drug consumption and treatment site. The split 6-5 vote in favor means 628 Goyo is where the facility will open up. This has been years in the making and something advocates say has already taken too long. Stacey Janzer joins us live tonight in studio now with more. Stacey, tell us about why some have pushed so hard to make this a reality.
Well, Katerina, the advocates say having the facility could mean the difference between life and death. Opioid-related overdoses resulting in deaths have been rising, increasing more so during the pandemic. Public Health Ontario keeps track of opioid-related morbidity rates. You can see the sharp increase starting in 2017, going from 48 deaths to 68, then 76, and last year 125. Advocates in Windsor say it's time for a consumption treatment site to open.
It's the difference between life or death.
Brandon Bailey was part of the Overdose Prevention Society in 2019. At that time, they set up an unsanctioned overdose prevention site, not far from where the CTS will be. At that time, they were giving a space for people to use drugs under supervision. It was quickly shut down, but Bailey says many people came to use their spot.
So if there's a brick and mortar that's there in that location, there's so much substance use in that area that's being done outside already at this point that it's only going to benefit people.
I know that there's a lot of opposition, and I understand the opposition. I have a son who is a substance abuser. I understand it very well. I believe it's more from fear and not being educated.
She says it worked well in other areas and that it's been a long time coming.
This is not just a homeless issue. It's not going to be facilitated just being used by the homeless community. These are also working class people. It's addiction has no respect of person. There is, it affects everybody.
Council's 5+ hours of questions, delegates, and conversation led to a split vote in favor of the location.
And I applaud the vote, the 6-5. It's not a overwhelming applause for it, but it is definitely what we need, and I'm happy about that.
Just because council has decided on a location doesn't mean it's happening now. There's still other parts of the provincial application to be completed, and then they have to get a federal exemption. It's a long process, but the local health unit is now one step closer to making that site a reality. Katerina?
Thanks for this, Stacey. CBC Stacey Janzer live tonight. Now, while many applaud the decision around the site, it's not without contention. As Stacey mentioned, the vote narrowly passed at council last night, and the mayor was one of the 5 who voted against it based on the location. Nearby businesses are also concerned about things like safety and fears of losing revenue. But are those concerns grounded? Jacob Barker looks at the outcome in another Ontario city.
Well, this is the location of the future supervised drug consumption and treatment site in the city. And as you can see, it is surrounded by businesses. And while those nearby this location do want a CTS in the downtown area, they're worried about how it will affect safety in the area and their business. In Guelph, they have had a CTS in their downtown core for the last 3 years. Users there can bring their own substances in and be given a safe way to use them, whether it be opioids or other substances.
What we knew was that we needed to build that fireplace around this fire that already existed. what that provided then for our businesses and our community members around our space was, somewhere for folks to go and to receive that support.
I spoke with a number of businesses in Guelph about the new center. Each one told me there was a visible issue with drug use in the area before the center was added. Most said there was no noticeable difference after the center moved in. One cafe owner even said they have seen fewer drug users in their bathroom since the center opened. The head of their Downtown Business Improvement Association told me he was skeptical before the center opened. Now that it's operating, he says it's a net positive for the community.
The end result is, we still have these issues, but what we do know is that there are fewer needles in parks and playgrounds and pathways, that there are fewer ambulance calls to emergency rooms, because overdoses can be dealt with on site.
The center in Guelph faced similar concerns when it was setting up in the area. They say through speaking with the public and showing them that it's set up in a very clinical manner, they were able to demonstrate the type of center it is.
In terms of the healthcare setting, we are a healthcare provider, and so we treat addiction like any other condition. We're required to be very mindful of protecting the privacy of the individuals accessing our services. And so the feedback we often hear from visitors to our spaces is that they're not even aware that there is a safe consumption site within our building.
So he says that while their site is about giving a safe space for users and preventing overdoses, it's also a place where they can get in touch with other services to help, things like addiction treatment, primary care, and mental health supports, much like the services planned for the proposed Windsor Center. Jacob Barker, CBC News, Windsor.
Staff at the Windsor Star need to clear out of their downtown home by the end of the month. Post Media, the company that owns the paper, says they've surrendered the lease back to the owner and need to be out by January 31st, although they didn't say why. Employees have been working from home since March of 2020, and the company expects that to continue until at least the spring. When asked if the Star will ever have a physical newsroom again, a spokesperson said they're evaluating as the COVID situation evolves. The space being vacated now on the corner of Olette and University opened back in 2012 after extensive renovations. St. Clair College has pushed back in-person learning on campus until January 31st. It was supposed to start next week, and as Dale Molnar reports, some students can't wait to return to the lecture hall, while others think it's too soon.
The college decided to extend online learning due to concerns about Omicron.
I think we were moving to the direction of, taking a closer look of what we could do to, again, keep everyone safe here at the college, and with our faculty as well as our staff, and obviously our students.
But nursing student Jenna Burke says learning online is difficult. She wants to return to class.
There's been really poor communication about every aspect of this whole online thing, especially for us as nursing students. A lot of my fellow nursing students have said that they feel very underprepared for this whole online learning session thing.
Nursing labs, however, will be offered in person next week, as will others.
There are certain labs that are going to be back at college next week, so it's not like everyone is off next week and not here.
Student Nick Venetilli is glad the college pushed back the date, but he has gathered 3,300 names on a petition asking the college to offer online learning as an option. The college says that's not possible.
I think it's still a little too early to go back on the 31st. I think there's still a lot of people that, as you can see in the petition, there's a lot of people that are voicing their concerns on coming back, especially with the lack of distancing that we have in classes.
The University of Windsor will also go back to in-person learning on January 31st, relief for some COVID-weary students.
So yes, we are excited for it. I get to meet a lot of students. The class interaction, lab classes, we want to sit in the lab for the courses. So it is exciting for us.
St. Clair students can go to the college website this week to see what they will be learning online or in person next week. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
Mobile vet clinics are filling a need for pet owners, offering services that may be hard to get in person during COVID-19. With pandemic measures in place, some animal hospitals are not allowing owners inside during euthanasia appointments. And that's made the process all the more difficult for owners like Jennifer Reed. She had to have her cat put down in October, but because of an outbreak, she wasn't able to be by her pet's side.
Giving my cat over in her carrier was really tough, and then receiving the carrier back empty, that was heartbreaking. Just the distance between myself and my little furry one made it really a COVID specific memory, but it just would have been nice to be the last one to hold her.
To address this, a local business, Bailey's Mobile Veterinary Services, has been making euthanasia house calls, and they've been busy. One of their clients had to put down her 17-year-old dog, Honey, earlier this month, and she says she couldn't imagine not being able to hold her during the process.
I got to kiss, hug the whole time and feed my dog Kabasa, which she was never allowed to have. And she went very peacefully, stress-free. And the vet said, take as much time as you need.
The number of deaths and hospitalizations linked to COVID-19 continue to rise in our region. Today, the local health unit reported that 9 more people have died due to the virus. That brings the total number of deaths up to 519. There are also 140 people in hospital with the disease locally, and that includes 20 people in intensive care. Meanwhile, the situation in Quebec is so dire, the government is calling on public servants to help in hospitals to make up for staffing shortages as COVID-19 patients overwhelm the health system. They're being asked to take over non-medical tasks normally performed by nurses. The CBC's Rowan Kennedy has more on the response.
The Quebec Healthcare Workers Union says it will relieve pressure off of nurses, but they're concerned how the new measure will be applied.
We have to integrate them. They have to complement the healthcare workers, not supplement them.
Premier Legault said thousands of new healthcare workers are being trained, but until then he hopes civil servants will fill gaps in staffing. The Premier explained that it would be on a voluntary basis on Tout le monde en parle.
Take charge of the nurses' administrative responsibilities so the nurses can concentrate on patients.
The province says the new staff will work as administrative aides and attend to patients' basic needs, such as serving food and drinks. They'll work in long-term care homes, readaptation centers, and sites built to help COVID overflow. The measure will be temporary, and those who do volunteer will get benefits offered to healthcare workers. But the union representing the civil servants in Quebec says they only got 2 days' notice before the new measure was announced. The head of the SFPQ says 30 to 35% of their members are essential and cannot leave their workplace.
We need some people now in the public services. We don't have them. We don't have enough people right now to work and to be able to respond to all the demands of the people of Quebec.
Last time, 500 civil servants were deployed to work in the healthcare field, but now the province is hoping more than 2,000 people will sign up. Rowan Kennedy, CBC News, Montreal.
Mobile networks in the U.S. were planning to start rolling out 5G technology tomorrow, which they say offers faster internet service and wider coverage. But airlines have put their concerns in a letter, warning the new technology could have an impact on safety and services. Now, at least 2 major wireless networks are postponing their rollouts near some U.S. airports. And that led to a thank you from the U.S. president, who says the move might help avoid potentially devastating disruptions. Ashley Burke has more on the story from Washington.
Airlines are warning of catastrophic disruption and a completely avoidable economic calamity. Delta, United, American Airlines, and others say that thousands of planes may need to be delayed, diverted, or grounded indefinitely, and estimate it could impact up to 100,000 passengers a day. The letter urges the government to ban 5G from 2 miles of an airport. That's about 3 kilometers. And wrote, quote, immediate intervention is needed to avoid significant operational disruption to air passengers, shippers, supply chain, and delivery of needed medical supplies, including vaccine distribution. The airline's concern is that Verizon and AT&T's 5G technology could interfere with planes' navigation tools that tell pilots how close they are to the ground during bad weather. Now, the wireless industry has accused the aviation sector of fear-mongering and has promised to reduce the signal strength, especially on cell towers near airports. AT&T announced today that it will hold off from turning on 5G at a limited number of towers near airports for now, and wrote in a statement that it's frustrated by the Federal Aviation Administration's inability to do what nearly 40 countries have done, which is to safely deploy 5G technology without disrupting aviation services, and we urge it to do so in a timely manner. Meanwhile, Canadian authorities banned 5G near airports this fall until more research is done. Transport Canada also issued a directive to help Canadian pilots navigate if they need to land at a U.S. airport with 5G nearby and there are issues. The Transport Minister's office says that it will be watching to see if there ends up being any impact on the supply chain and Canadian travelers. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Washington.
During her visit to Kiev, Foreign Minister Mélanie Joly says Canada stands shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine. The Eastern European nation is currently dealing with the threat of a possible Russian invasion.
There is only one viable path. Russia needs to de-escalate and needs to engage in meaningful dialogue.
Russia has denied any plans to invade, but has positioned about 100,000 troops near its border with Ukraine. Meanwhile, Ukraine has asked its allies for more military assistance. Joly today said that Canada will make a decision in a timely manner. She says her visit is meant to show Canada's unwavering solidarity to the country during the ongoing crisis. Her next stop is France before she heads to Brussels to meet with European Union and NATO leaders. Let's take a live look outside. There are mainly cloudy conditions out there this evening as well as tomorrow. It's been a little bit warmer than last week and over the weekend, so that's been nice. Colette will be here. She'll have your full weather breakdown in just a little bit. Stay with us. Colette Kennedy joins us now for a look at our weather forecast. Colette, I got to go for a run earlier today, and for the first time in a while, I didn't totally freeze because it was a little bit warmer, which I welcomed.
Yeah, and it's going to get even warmer still, Katerina, but it's so short-lived. I'm not sure. Maybe you'll get one more run in there before it leaves us once again. Let me kind of show you what's happening here. We have an Alberta clipper on the way, and it's called that. I mean, Alberta, because they tend to kind of regenerate from some energy that comes over the Rockies. So in the lee of the Rockies, we see these things coming together. Alberta. Clipper moves very quickly. It clips right through. So the action with it is that we may see a little bit of light kind of wet flurry activity, even a bit of drizzly because of the temperature. You can see those readings barely below freezing Windsor for Chatham, Kent, and Sarnia. Now, the winds are providing a bit of a wind chill, but the direction is interesting too. A little more southeasterly over towards London and St. Thomas and Chatham, Kent, kind of there. It's the changeover area where we get to the more southerly and then eventually southwesterly flow. So the temperature's a little milder here the further west that you travel, and a little cooler still a bit to the east. So some of this not even reaching the ground if you're saying, like, I'm not really seeing anything, but there are some light flurries through here. As I say, it moves by very quickly. There is going to be an area close to the Ottawa Valley, eastern Ontario, back into northeastern Ontario, that actually some of those areas were part of the big dumping of snow yesterday, and now they're going to see another 5 to 10 centimeters, or in a few cases a little more. But mostly these are light in terms of the precipitation because of their speed. However, they do open the door for much colder air to come in behind them. So ahead of it, we get that bump in temperatures. That's why even a little bit of that drizzly or rain showery activity. And then behind it, things turn with those winds turning west to northwest and driving the temperatures down and driving those wind chills in here as well. So just looking at what's happening with the winds there, you can see them getting quite gusty. Those temperatures rising overnight. These aren't even the highs I think we're going to see. I think we'll get up to about 5 degrees, Windsor. And then it's just, we reach that kind of early in the morning, and then we see the falling temperatures into the afternoon hours with that directional change to the winds. So very short-lived. Get a run in if you can, if you'd like to do that. Then just looking ahead, well, actually, there should be a minus in front of that. Sorry, I lost my negative there. And then you see not just colder days, but those nights that are going to be chilly there, Katerina.
Indeed. I'm going to run tomorrow and then schedule my rest day for Friday. That'll be my rest day. Thanks,
Yeah,
Colette.
now you got a plan, and it goes
Exactly.
with the weather. Perfect.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
When we come back, a woman is building a wall, but it's building unity, not separation. So we'll bring you that story in just a couple of minutes. Stay with us. Nearly 3 days after the satellite images showed the massive volcanic eruption on the Pacific nation of Tonga, we are finally getting a slightly better sense of the situation on the ground. The main island of Tongatapu has reported significant infrastructure damage with about 50 homes destroyed. So far, at least 3 deaths have been officially confirmed from Saturday's eruption and the tsunami that followed. Many areas are dealing with ash that's everywhere, and even drinking water sources are contaminated. The lingering ash cloud is even making satellite phone calls to other countries an issue. Communication remains limited across Tonga, home to about 105,000 people. And in business news, Microsoft has announced the largest acquisition in the history of the company. The technology giant is buying video game developer Activision Blizzard for nearly $70 billion. Activision is known for blockbuster games such as Call of Duty and Candy Crush. But in recent months, the company has been plagued by a series of workplace crises. Microsoft says it will hold the company to a commitment of inclusion and treating employees with dignity and respect. Turning now to another story here. Usually walls are built to keep people apart, but that's not always the case. Take a look at the efforts of one woman who is building a winter wall that's actually bringing people together.
I am building an ice wall, and which is morphing into a fort. So it started off with the idea of just building a few bricks, making a small wall in front of my house to bring some joy to the neighborhood. Well, I started it, I think, on the coldest day right after Christmas. So it was about -45 when I started making the bricks, and started laying the first bricks on the 31st of December, and so I'm still working on it. It did take longer than I thought because originally it was just going to be a small project, but as I started working on it and was enjoying it, and more ideas were coming, and so it is probably going to be an ongoing project. I imagine working on it for the rest of the winter. I've learned that it is much easier to build when it's -40 than when it's -5, that things freeze much quicker. So I went to Dollarama and I got a whole bunch of mini loaf tins, 60 of them. I'd come out first thing in the morning with jugs of colored water and pour them into the loaf tins, let them freeze. When it was -40, they were frozen in 3 hours, so I could do mass production. The most fun was talking to the people as they were walking by or stopping by. I've had more contact with people in the last week and a half than I think I have the last 2 years. So it's just been really fun to have people stop and talk about the wall and why I was doing it and asking me questions about how they could do it for themselves.
I love that so much. And what a great way to bring the community together, start that conversation, build those relationships. Love that. That is it for CBC Windsor News. For news anytime, you can go to our website. Just go to cbc.ca/Windsor. We are also on social media. You can find us on Facebook, on Instagram, and Twitter. The Rick Mercer Report is up next. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.